Hi there, my name is Annie Von Essen. I'm a strategic consultant and coach. And today I wanted to offer you some tools for making a big move or transition in your life or your career. I've already offered a few videos around like starting the transition, the first sort of steps for thinking about it, reflecting, or even how to make a shift or a change in where you're at currently without having to make a big transition right away. But if you're ready for the change to happen and need to figure out what are the steps to start to really make the moves towards it, this is the video. These are the tools I would recommend. So hopefully you've had some time to reflect and you've got a supportive crew around you that can really support you in thinking through this change. And there you're ready to go into some of these steps or some of these tools that can help bring clarity. So one of them that I would really offer, and for folks that have worked with me, this won't be a surprise, I would suggest that you go and explore your strengths and your core values. So if this is work you've already done and you've got a list of your strengths written somewhere, get that back out, bring it back into focus for you. If this is new, the easiest steps are to figure out what your strengths are is to sit down and think about it and have the courage to write out the things that you're good at and that are strengths that you bring into different situations. And ask people around you, ask people you've worked with, ask people in your community, in your family, what are some strengths that I bring? What are some ways that you've seen me support X, Y, and Z, right? And ask via email, ask in a casual conversation, and write it down and gather these. You can also do something like Strengths Finder, or you can do like a personality, tests that are online. There's lots of different opportunities to kind of see like what are the things that you're good at. So bring that around you, think about that again, and then add to that your values. So what are one or two or three of the most important guiding values in your life? Ask yourself this question and jot it down and think about it. For me, one of them is community, really being with and in groups of human beings that are working together to make something happen and to support each other and to really support those connections. That's a value of mine in both my life and in my business. It's one of my guiding values. So think through what yours are. And again, if this is work you've never done before, there are lots of resources to go find online to really think through your values. Take a look at those things together, at both your strengths and your values, and have some space to reflect on those. Maybe add another bonus layer of what are some things that bring you a lot of joy in your life and really spark excitement in your life. And you could add that layer of reflection. That's something you want to be thinking about when you're making the change, through how you want to walk through it, and also what you want on the other side. How will you be able to activate your strengths and be living out your values and moving towards joy in your life? Of course, not all those things are going to happen the whole time, but it's great to have them as your foundation. So after you've done that, the next thing is, again, another piece of reflection that can really set you up for making the change, and that is think through your needs and your wants. And you can start to list these, right? So again, a distinction between needs and wants, right? I would maybe make two different columns. Your needs are essential. They're required, right? They're required for your physical and your mental health and your well-being. And a want is something that you desire, you would like to have more of, you would like to have less of, right? These can look different for different people. So a need could be, a financial need, a certain earning point, health insurance, right? And a want could be the flexibility to pick up your kids or your grandkids from school, right? And for some people, that want could actually be a need, not an option. Like that's something that's really important that I have to be able to do. So figure out what your needs and your wants are. Start to line those out. I'm imagining if you're in the midst of thinking of a change or a transition, that there are things that have already been really occurring that are driving that forward, that are needs and wants that you have. So see if you can distinguish those. And then to add a layer, I have a little drawing to show you, a little schematic. You see that? Below yours, start to think of others. So what are other people's needs and what are other people's wants? And these could be other people in your life, in your community that you're responsible for, you're accountable to. It could be folks within your current career or your job or your team. What are their needs and wants? If you're thinking of a big creative change, it could be that you're also thinking of what is the need that you would be responding to, right, with this change that you're making. What is the want out there that you would be responding to with this change that you're making? So that's another way to be thinking about it. But begin to think of not just you, right, this bigger picture of who's impacted and what are their needs and what are their wants. And here's the thing, you can sit and start to think about that, but to actually answer that, you can't answer it on your own. It requires some conversations. It requires some clarity and some listening. So maybe you do some brainstorming and you're thinking about that, but then the next tool that I would really use in making this kind of a bigger change or transition in your life is to think about your commitments and begin to have some real critical conversations, right? And if you start to think of the needs and the wants, you'll start to think of the people in your life that you have commitments to, right? So what commitments do you already have? And how can you begin to respond to those? And what human beings are you in a committed relationship with who, will be impacted by this change, by this transition? So start to think of who those people are and what those commitments are, right? And as you get clarity on that, that will start to help you see both the things that you need to tend to, more of those needs and those wants, and also the conversations that you need to move towards. I think this is the step where people sort of get stuck and either skip it or don't make the change because we're always making all of these changes. They impact, a world of other people in our lives, right? And could impact our team, the people that we've been working with, and it's hard to think about those impacts, or it could impact family, or it could impact community or commitments that you've made to people. But this is the key step that moves you forward and probably aligns with some of your values, right? So I would really suggest do the work of figuring out who those conversations need to be with and start to enter into those conversations. Prepare ahead if you can, set them up, think about the strategy of when to have those conversations. You're probably going to have more than one with certain people, but begin to have the conversations. That's really going to move you forward in the change. And I've suggested this before in other places, but I would really recommend one of the tools to use for those setting up those conversations could be Radical Alignment. It's a book, and you can find the website too, to really set yourself up to think about the conversation and to make room for a more dynamic conversation where you're really listening to where other people are at and what their needs are. Things are going to come up in this conversation. Change is hard. And if other people are implicated in a change that you need or want, that's a big conversation. So set up the space and the time and the framework or the container for that conversation. And do the work you need to do to get yourself ready to listen, which again is the thing I'm constantly working on in my personal life of like, how am I actually showing up to listen and to not push something forward? And man, when it's a change conversation, that's a hard one for me. So do whatever you need to do to like get yourself prepared to actually be in the conversation and actually listen. Good things will come of it. It isn't going to land where you want it to necessarily land if you're having the bigger, broader conversation with the people that are impacted. But in the long run, it will probably be a better scenario. You'll be thinking about more things. It'll be a more holistic process. So go forth, have the conversations with folks. That will really launch you and prepare you for moving into the actual change and transition, right? And Then the last few things I would say that another important tool that I would mention while you're in this and after you've started to have those conversations and you're starting to pay attention to all these reflections is go back to listening to yourself. What is your little voice inside telling you about this transition, about this change? Quiet enough things externally to keep listening to yourself. That might be a little bit less screen time or podcasts, or it might be that you shut certain things down in, when you're doing dishes is always my go-to of am I listening to things? Am I watching things? Or am I listening to myself, right? You slow down a little bit in the morning when you're having a cup of tea or a cup of coffee and you just listen to yourself. You do things to get inside your body. That will help you listen to yourself. So going for a walk if you can, or a run, or, dancing in your living room. I know not everybody does that, but that can be helpful. So think of things you can do to be listening to yourself, really listening to yourself, the inner voice throughout this process. And especially as you're getting more information and more feedback from other people. And then one of the other hard ones is take all the information in and make the plan and start to do it. So I think that folks can get to the edge of the change for a long time, for months or for years. And there's a lot of reasons. There's a lot that maybe with those commitment conversations, with where things are at, you may not be able to make the change right now. And that's just real. And you got to just give yourself the space that you can't make the change right now. Sometimes, though, the last thing to occur is the leap, is the jump, and you just got to do it. So one of the things that can help you with that is write down the plan, write down the next step you have to take, have the conversation with the folks you're committed with, and then name the date. Name the time, name the when that first biggest sort of move is going to happen that means the transition is occurring. Figure out when that is. Work up to it, work after it if you need to. If you're a planner like me and you need to write a bunch of things down and do the scenarios, go for it. Make the game plan. If you don't need to do all the scenarios, just find the next step and take it, and then find the next step and take it, and just stay in conversation with yourself, the people that are in support of you, and the people that you're in committed relationships with, and start moving forward. You've got this. It's exciting and totally nerve-wracking to be in a place of change and transition. And I hope that these reminders, things you probably already knew, are helpful and supportive in you moving towards the thing that you need and the thing that you want, or the things that you and the people in your life need and want. And I hope you have the space to begin to really take that leap. Thank you.